Roadblock and Revolutions. It's another edition of Draped in Gold, the award-winning, we do mean award because only won podcast covering all the best of wrestling and culture. It's your boy, Flobo Boys, as always, not alone, being joined by a guy who's won some awards himself, the real Jack Farmer. What's up, man?
Yeah, we say award-winning and only one. However, some would say it's possibly the greatest and most important award you can win. Those people happen to work for the Webbies, but
it's not even a Webby. We can't afford a Webby. It costs $300 to apply for a Webby.
Oh, what did we get?
We got a Viddy, actually. It's
a Viddy. Well, I mean, that's more important. I never thought in my wildest dreams to be a Viddy. That's why I said a Webby.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. We're such shams. Thanks so much for watching us live streaming. Before we get into today's episode, I just got to say thank you so much for letting us know over the past couple of days about that glitch we had over there with the YouTube channel. Looks like we lost a lot of those episodes on that YouTube channel. We're trying to get them restored over the next couple of weeks, but you know, that happens when technology turns heel on us. But if you want to check out past episodes of Draped, make sure you follow us on both that Apple Podcast and that Spotify for that video content.
Well, that's why you got to be here live, Flobo. You never know when YouTube's going to turn heel on us and delete content. So you got to be here live so you can see it. It might be gone forever. It might be lost media, as they call it. But I do appreciate everyone who's turned out, like Danny Cochran already in the chat. Woo! The likes, the comments, the shares, the subscribes. The shares are big. That's how we get more viewers. If you're watching this on Twitter, all you got to do. If you're watching on X, all you got to do. Hit the share button, hit the repost button, and you're there. If you're watching on YouTube, just copy that link and throw it into social media.
That raises a question. Will we ever call it X? Like, I still call it Kinko's, and it's been FedEx Office for like 20 years. But do you think that we'll ever call it X? X.
Possibly not, because I had this time. I went and visited my folks back during the holidays, and my mom says, we got to go to Stuart Anderson's for dinner. And I'm like, Stuart Anderson's? I don't know what this is, but it sounds tasty. I'm excited to try it out. Yeah. And she goes, okay, we're going to go get reservations to Stuart Anderson's. I'm like, oh, this must be a very fancy place. Very excited. So she says, can you make the reservation? I'm like, okay, cool. I'll call. I'll make this reservation at Stuart Anderson. So I Google it and find out it's a Black Angus, Flobo.
Oh!
It's a Black Angus. I was like, Mom, it's Black Angus. We don't. What do you think? We need to make a reservation here. Let's just go to Black Angus. Nothing against Black Angus, but like whatever. Okay. Why'd you call it Stuart Anderson's? And she goes, oh, well, it used to be called that. And so I said to myself, oh, did they just get bought recently? Did it recently change? I looked it up. Flobo hasn't been Stuart Anderson since 1980. I wasn't even alive when this was called Stuart Anderson's, Flobo.
Just the other day. It's just the other day.
It's been over 40 years, Ma.
I gotta say,
calling it the new name.
If you got a sit-down restaurant with wood grain and some brown furniture and a steak, people love it. Like, there's Wood Ranch, there's Black Angus, there's Longhorn. They all do the same thing.
It was a fine meal, but the whole time I was there, I was like, Stuart Anderson, what are we doing here?
Even Stuart's like, oh, please stop. Dear God.
He's like, oh, yeah, I did have a restaurant.
Man, we had a lot going on in the world of wrestling this week, so let's get right into it, man. Number one story with the bullet, even though we are about 6 weeks away from WrestleMania season, the Hall of Fames are trickling in. You know, I usually say I'm arbitrarily against Hall of Fames, even though I got inducted to one myself this week. But it looks like the natural disasters are heading to the Hall of Fame. I was an earthquake guy. What say you about this crowning achievement?
Some of my earliest wrestling memories, and when I say my earliest, I always say like my first wrestling memory was the Royal Rumble that Ric Flair won, because that's the first one I remember watching kind of chronologically and being like, okay, I'm watching the show regularly. But I watched a lot of wrestling before that. That was like my cousin would bring over tapes or whatever, and I wasn't watching it steadily, if that makes sense.
From Suncoast Video?
Yeah, and so one of my earliest wrestling memories, and ones that is just absolutely etched into my brain forever, is Earthquake killing Jake the Snake Damien. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but this is one of those, hard on your sleeve shows. This is one of those shows that we say what really happened. I'm a little embarrassed. I Googled this morning if Earthquake actually killed Damien the Snake.
Wait, hold on. So you were scarred for like decades, and it was like, oh, well.
Scarred until today, Flobo.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like Stuart Anderson, a lie that has been living in my brain for all these years. That's how much this jarred me. So yes, I was an earthquake person myself, primarily, but natural disasters, I think, are a team that definitely should go in. And I think there's probably a lot of people who were scarred by this moment and scarred by these two
Yeah.
for years. So I'm really glad to see them go in. And I just think it's natural for them to be in there.
He said it. So this kind of raises a question that I'm sure 2% of all fans are asking is, what's the deal with Batista? Is he in? Is he out? What's say? Is he going to be in the Hall of Fame? What's going on?
I don't know. I don't know what
You
the
should.
deal is. They're clearly, I think, just waiting for a time that it makes sense. Part of me thinks that this will probably end up with him going in, but not as a headliner, because as time goes on, clearly he gets further into the rear view, but also it's hard to make it feel like it's really that important to the guy if he's put it off for years now. He's like, yeah, I'll get to it when I'm in town. Sorry, I'm busy. I get that he's busy, but it also makes it feel a little bit like, okay, you're clearly not all about this, and there's people who it's a bit more important for it, and that's totally okay. I think that WWE has a lot of people that they could put in as a headliner, and they'll be absolutely fine. But he'll go in. It's fine. Speaking of people who will they or won't they, I also just wanted to add, I think it's fantastic that Lex Luger is going in as well. And I think it was, I don't know if you saw the video of Cody Rhodes telling him he was going to go into the Hall of Fame, but talk about a feel-good moment. And Lex Luger is someone that totally deserves it. And as a fan, I always hated Lex Luger because when I was a youth, he was the narcissist. So, boo, that man. But then as I got a little bit older,
Anderson's. No,
yeah, he's a Stuart Anderson. And then it got even worse. Then, as I got older, I became an NWO guy, and he was always against the NWO. So I felt like we were always on opposite sides of the aisle in that regard. But absolutely, politically speaking, we were.
I was like, what?
Yeah, it was just his policies I was against.
Right.
But he is a core part of pro wrestling, especially during that 90s era. And it's cool. I think a lot of us just sort of relegated him to he'll probably go in after he passes, which is he's earned it, but it's sad. I think it's great that he'll get to be there and see it and experience it. And he knows just how important he is to wrestling and how wrestling views him. And so I'm ecstatic he's going in. I'm glad he's going in while he's alive. It also takes me back to that means Shinsuke Nakamura and Jey Uso, only Royal Rumble winners that haven't disqualified themselves, that aren't going into the Hall of Fame yet. Will they go in? Is it kind of a guaranteed shot now based on these statistics? We'll have to find out.
I think I was the right age for this. I was all about the Lex Express. I just totally bought into it. Now, I came into wrestling pretty odd. Hogan was already kind of his way out. They call it the worst part of WWE was in the mid-90s, but I was buying it hook, line, and sinker of watching this bus go from city to city. And the Intrepid was like right down the street in the city. And I wanted to go see it, but obviously didn't realize that these shows weren't taped live. But yeah, I was all about Lex Luger and his American thing. I know they call it a failure and he wasn't Hulk, but I would have known. I totally would have known as a kid.
A lot of people say that about the mid 90s, but there's so many people who fell in love with pro wrestling during the mid 90s. It's kind of weird. We're going to say that about the COVID era someday, but there'll be a whole generation of people like I fell in love with pro wrestling during the Thunderdome era.
Oh, yeah. I was saying about, well, not so much the COVID era, but I was saying this about the 2000s when Ruthless Aggression came and everyone was kind of over it. Like, as dumb as he was, I loved Heidenreich. I thought it was hilarious. Or the Dicks or the other tag teams out, Heartthrobs, the Highlanders. Like, come on, man. Deuce and
Dominoes always the first one I think of.
Yeah, I hear you. But the COVID era also is pretty legit.
So, yeah, I think the Hall of Fame to me has become something that it was kind of a mixed bag. I don't want to disparage anybody, but it was always a little bit like, oh, this person's great, but I don't know why this person's in or whatever. It does feel like the Hall of Fame is definitely starting to get a lot of the heart back to it, what makes it special. And I'm just glad the people who are going in are getting that opportunity to go in.
Hall of Fames are arbitrary, man. There's no rubric. Doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. There's going to be people complaining up and down, and wrestling doesn't even have stats the way that most sports do. So I always say bah humbug. But again, like I said earlier, I got into a Hall of Fame in my college this week, so I love Hall of Fames now. They're great. Any
Yeah,
Hall of
they're
Fame
very
that has me in it,
I am in the Wedding Wire and the Not Hall of Fame, the most prestigious of Hall
those
of
don't
Fames.
count.
Those are, I think, Baseball Hall of Fame hopes to one day be as valuable as the
Oh yeah,
Not
oh
Hall of
yeah,
Fame.
yeah, but not all. Let's move on to some things that actually happened. Talk about AEW Revolution comes to you live from the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles. Now, this time last week, you said, besides Grand Slam Australia, that this pay-per-view was going to be critical for AEW to put themselves on the right track to the greener pastures of being dope again. Did they do it this Sunday?
I think they learned what the path is this Sunday, and I think they learned it the hard way. Revolution may be AEW's most consistent, high quality show that they do every single year. And I think that this year was no exception. I think if you're a fan of AEW and you're a fan of AEW style matches, you got MJF versus Hangman, which was great. You got Swerve versus Ricochet, great. You got the Hollywood ending. You've got Takeshita versus Omega. You got Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. All these matches, if you're a fan of the AEW style match, were match of the year candidates. They were fantastic. They delivered in every way, shape, and form. And this is what we want to see going forward as AEW fans. I think this was a message to Tony Khan. This is what we want to see. We loved it. The crowd was into it. It was an awesome night. Now, there are some people who talk about how AEW should adjust the way they do matches, whether it be to slow it down, make certain things matter more. Hey, I've heard Bully Ray say he can't even talk about MJF versus Hangman because there was a tombstone to a chair and it didn't end the match. There are some people who think they say need to slow it down and they need to do things a little differently, make small things feel important, maybe be a little bit like Roman Reigns matches. And those matches on WWE are great. But I think what we saw here with the main event with Cope versus Mox is that sometimes you got to know your audience. And I love a Roman Reigns match. I feel like that's what they were going for in that main event. And I don't think that's how he felt. I think a lot of people did not enjoy it. The same way if you're a stand-up comedian, Flobo, and you understand this, a joke may kill in certain markets, and then it may bomb in other markets. Death either way when you think about it, but kill or bombs. AEW, I think this was proof that AEW has a style. AEW has something that AEW fans want. Mm-hmm. And I think that this was the moment where they realized, and look, I defend Cope all the time on this program.
You do. You shouldn't, but you do.
I defend Cope all the time. And I think Moxley is AEW's most valuable wrestler they've ever signed in the history of that company by a long shot. And that's including guys like Jericho who helped him get him off the ground. I think what we saw with this main event, especially after all these incredible matches throughout Revolution, is that AEW learned, and I think they showed their fans, the wrestlers, and hopefully Tony Khan, this is what we want out of AEW. We want the Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay. We want the Takeshita versus Omega. We don't want the Cope versus Moxley.
AEW made one mistake in not signing Cope. And I know that I'm the biggest Cope fan. I'm not a fan at all. But here is somebody that came back at an advanced age, had the Heroes send-off at another company, comes over and has not produced at the level we think it is. It's not 2022 anymore, right? Or 2002 anymore. I understand everyone gets old. I understand it has to be things of styles. But you think about AJ Styles and Edge at WrestleMania 38. Something was off. You think about the Judgment Day. Something was off. He goes over to AEW and Mox has done everything that brand has asked him for. You put him in the match. Cope goes, I'm going to give you a Cope match. And it blew up in their face. It's not about giving the fans what they want. I think those two men did the best they can do given the skills at this point involved in the matchup. Hot takes, maybe.
Well, I think, again, you may have a point. I don't know what the conversation was going into it, but I do think that I got a feeling it's kind of like the actor who has done work on The Godfather and then goes into a Marvel movie, right? If I'm watching a Marvel movie or if I'm watching The Godfather and someone gets shot once, I assume they're dead. They were shot. They're killed. If I'm
Right.
watching a Marvel movie and they get shot once, well, come on, buddy. You got to get shot a lot more than that to die.
Yeah, Quicksilver. Oh, wait. No, he
Wait.
did die. He died pretty handily.
uh, and I think that's kind of where they went with this match is they said, hey, we're going to tell a Godfather match and one bullet is going to put an end to this character. And it feels lackluster. We're in the AEW's Marvel. I want to see you get shot 100 times. This is the action movie. I want to see someone get shot and stabbed and keep on going. And then after the credits, they get back up again. That's the kind of stuff I think people want to see in AEW. We don't want to see a headlock that takes big chunks of the match. We don't want to see oh man, the 10 minutes in, they're struggling to get to their feet when we got 20 minutes left in the match. I think that works other places, and that's not even a put down. I think it's just what you're expecting from these things.
Mox understands that. That's all I'm saying about that, but not to pile on. But I heard, move on a bit for the interest of time, that on the other side of the spectrum, one of the other biggest losers was MJF. And that somehow it felt like this loss in particular put a lot of momentum out of his sales. What say you?
I disagree. I don't think losing a big match on a big show against a top person is taking a lot out of your sales. We'll talk about.
What about Aura? We have Aura. Aura? No?
Well, there's someone I think we'll talk about when it comes to Aura in a little bit, but Seth Rollins lost to CM Punk on the Netflix premiere. Did that take away a lot of Seth Rollins' aura? Did it take the wind out of his sails? No, not at all. Losing to a top person on a big show does not take any wind out of your sails.
That's different, though. Because Seth Rollins arguably is on a bigger mountaintop than MJF right now. And so a lot of people thought when AEW was having its bad months, MJF was a symbol of what was left that was cool. And him losing pretty handedly this past weekend could have been a way to upend that.
Well, they didn't lose handedly. They had a great matchup. It was a close one. The thing is, and I don't know, I think we'll talk about it maybe later. I don't know how much.
Do it now. Do it now.
But it's the follow-up that matters with MJF. Yes, if MJF was off TV this week, and then MJF came out and cut a promo about nobody and it didn't go anywhere, and then was off TV again, and then maybe had a match with a local talent and they didn't have a place for him, then I'd say, yeah, this looks bad. But the fact that he's got something going, they've got the next step for him, and the fact that what happened between him and Hangman pays into that, nah, he's fine.
He's fine. That's a quote from Jack Farmer. So if he doesn't become fine, you know where to go. Send you all your hate mail at Real Jack Farmer across all social media platforms.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, he's fine.
Wait, okay, that's like hey, girl, you fine. This past Tuesday,
speaking of mid-90s.
Yeah, in a real intimate venue was NXT Roadblock from the theater at Madison Square Garden. And to me, I thought it was kind of fun on some levels and kind of interesting on other levels. The road to Stand and Deliver is now, again, like WrestleMania, 6 weeks away. Roadblock, to me, was kind of interesting. Where do you land on this?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting as well. I like the arena. I thought it was cool. I thought the visuals were all very fun. Friend of the show, Haywood, was there, had a great time, said it was loud. I thought it came across well on TV. This was a great show with great matches. We just talked about AEW, and I think that this show, Roadblock, was very comparable to AEW Forbidden Door. I think we had a lot of fun matches, very fun to watch. It was a great program to have on TV. I enjoyed it. Didn't feel like the stakes were that real. I don't know if I believed that Fraxium was really going to walk away with the TNA Tag Team Championships. I don't think I believed that Moose was going to walk away with the NXT Championship.
Dylan Matthews did. He's like, I'm not him. Yeah.
Can't win them all. But a lot of these, just like AEW Forbidden Door, and I'm a fan of AEW Forbidden Door. I'm a fan of this show. I think sometimes fun wrestling, mixed universe matches are fun to watch, but I don't think this had the stakes of a like Tony D'Angelo versus Obafemi, where you're like, oh, these guys are from the same universe. This felt like these guys are going to clash, and then we're never going to see them again, and everyone's going to go back to how it was before all this happened, right?
Okay, but can I just offer a bit of a caveat here in that maybe because Stand and Deliver was 6 weeks away, this would have been a perfect opportunity to have a small program of someone coming from another brand, maybe losing or gaining a championship and having that rematch at the biggest event of the year. No?
Maybe, but I don't think anyone really believed that was going to happen. I think if you went to Vegas and you looked at the betting odds of Moose winning or the betting odds of Fraxium winning, they weren't very good.
Right.
The matches
on
were
professional wrestling in Vegas? Like who actually goes to Vegas and bet on wrestling?
You'd be surprised. I mean, it's Vegas. What do they not bet on in Vegas?
Enough.
I'm pretty sure that this program is being bet on in Vegas right now.
I wish we had that many fans.
Will they talk about Chad Gable? Bet now. The over-under is. But I do want to say, because I thought this was a great program. The thing that really stuck out for me is two people. Two people stood out to me on this, and how they ascended to even greater heights than they were already at. And the first one is Stephanie Vacure, who she came into NXT with a lot of people. She was kind of part of a big class of people.
Shout out to Booker T.
She came in with a class of people, very high-profile signings all around her, whether it be Jordan Grace, Julia, who she fought in this matchup. There was a lot of stuff coming in, and she kind of settled in the middle of that group, right, of where her outlook looked to be. Mm-hmm. Today, or at Roadblock, I should say, she proved that she is the top of that class undeniably. And I took this moment when she beat Julia. It reminded me very much of, and I don't think there was as clear a moment, but it reminded me very much of when Cody Rhodes surpassed Ted DiBiase Jr. as like, remember?
What?
Look, remember when Legacy was around, Ted DiBiase Jr. was the one everyone thought was the future. People weren't talking about Cody Rhodes. They're like, that Ted DiBiase, he's going to be a future world champion. And Cody Rhodes even said as much. They said, don't ruin things for Ted DiBiase Jr., Cody. But at some point, we all realized, oh, actually, Cody Rhodes is the star. Cody Rhodes is the one with the future. And look at him now. Cody Rhodes, the WWE champion, going to main event WrestleMania for the third time in a row. I am making this comparison because I believe very big things are coming up for Stephanie Vacure. I think that this was the moment, though, we all said, yeah, Julia came in and went straight for the championship. Julia was the one that got all the buzz. Jordan Grace got a bunch of buzz. Stephanie Vacure, she may be the one that really is the standout, and that's what I believe. And I think on this program, that's what you and I have both been saying for some time now. But I think Roadblock NXT, that's where she proved it.
Yeah, I think Stephanie Vacure is someone who didn't really have all the fanfare, right? People knew of Julia for years. Stephanie Vacure kind of came to most modern American audiences about a year ago, like a year and a half ago, which is really our ignorance as American fans. But I have never seen anyone with a specific moveset, with a specific entrance, with a vibe or aura, who looked a certain way and found a way to dominate since the days of Shayna Baszler. And here's somebody that can really be a champion for a long period of time if she decides to keep both of them. I'm not sure if she's going to do the whole Keith Lee thing and get rid of one or what have you. And maybe Julia got caught in that buzzsaw. Now, I know the story is that she's injured, but the idea is like once they both became champion, there really was rumblings about how do you switch those titles, because it felt like Vacure was the brand before she became the NXT Women's Champion.
I totally agree. And the other person that stood out for me, this is going to sound like a broken record, but Obafemi. Obafemi, again.
What do you mean?
Obafemi, he's already the champion, and so a lot of people would say, how could you say that he raised the sun? This is like NVIDIA, baby. Like, it's been going up for a year, but guess what, man? It's going to continue to go up. Yeah, we talk business sometimes.
Stock, woo. Bonds, woo. Mutual funds, woo.
Stop. But look at this is why is Because when you saw the Undertaker, of all people, are looking Obafemi in the eye, and by the way, Obafemi looked just as big as the Undertaker in this stare down. But more importantly, Obafemi still felt like the big star standing next to the Undertaker, and that is a very rare kind of thing to do. Where when they're looking face to face, it did not look like this is the legend trying to give the rub, as they say, to the young rookie. This looked like two legitimate stars, and I'm watching this thinking, Undertaker, you better step back because Obafemi is about to smash you if you don't get out of his way very soon. And that is a very rare thing to say, especially when just a year ago, the Undertaker was choke slamming the final boss in the middle of a WrestleMania ring.
Yeah.
That said, his match with Moose, and I know I said I didn't expect Moose to win, but this was a time that showed me that Obafemi doesn't just look dominant because of the people around him. You know, sometimes you see a college football player and they look incredible, but that's because they're playing around a bunch of people who have no chance of making it in the NFL.
Yeah, the East Carolina State Chanticleers or whatever they're playing on.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, this guy's great. And you're like, oh, it's because he's playing people who barely made it out of high school. That's why he looks great. This, to me, seeing him outpower, outmaneuver, outspeed Moose and throw Moose around the way he did showed me that it is not because he's an NXT. Obafemi will throw anybody around. I think Obafemi will throw Roman Reigns around if he has to, and that is saying something. I think Obafemi could very well go as far as we've said for a while. I think he's a Hall of Famer someday. I compared at the beginning of his run, and when he first started, Flobo, I hope you remember this. Fans of the show should remember this. I said Obafemi reminded me of Samoa Joe because he has a casual dominance about him, and people, they tore me to shreds. How dare you compare him to Samoa Joe?
It was great.
How dare you say he could be as great as Samoa Joe? I'll go one further. I think when the story is written and all is said and done, Obafemi has even more accolades to his name than Samoa Joe does. Obafemi has everything you're looking for to be an all-time great. Obafemi, I cannot sing this guy's praises high enough.
History was made for a bunch of reasons, but particularly in this matchup. Again, it was first time two men of Nigerian descent in Moose and Obafemi had a championship matchup inside the WWE. So, of course, if you're an African wrestling fan or a fan of African performers, it actually is a watershed moment. But A Plus LA says something that's pretty interesting. He says, or they say, the NXT crowd has been lame for Moose. Agree or disagree?
I don't think so. I mean, when he walks out, you're hearing the moose, you know? So I don't think they were lame for him. The issue is, like me, I'm watching NXT. I'm an NXT fan. I'm a home fan. So, of course, I'm behind the home team guy, Obafemi. And I think that's the difference we're seeing. I bet if it was over at TNA, it'd probably be the same thing reversed.
Wow. You are a Moose hater. All right, confirmed. How about that?
I actually had the chance to work with Moose over at Prestige, call one of his matches against Galeno Del Mal, and it was a banger of a matchup. You can check that one out somewhere on the internet, I'm sure.
I like how you deflected and say if you were a hater or not. I called one of his matches. Some of my best friends are Moose. What the heck, Jack? Are you a hater or not? Are you a hater or not? Just say.
I actually really like Moose. I actually really enjoy Moose. I feel like his name doesn't scream world champion, but he's proven me wrong many times. So what do I know?
Yeah, proving you wrong is pretty easy. Let's talk about the faction situation. Sean Spears' group is called the Culling. The other group with the four young studs of Sugars, Lennox, Osiris Griffin, and James have not been named. Are there too many factions in NXT right now?
Yeah, I think so. Factions are like putting bacon on things where it's very easy to say, oh, let's add bacon to this. Let's add bacon to that. It makes it taste better. Let's add bacon to this. And suddenly you have too much bacon.
What?
I think that you can say the same thing about ranch dressing as well, by the way.
Y'all need to stop with that ranch dressing. It just deadens the palate. What are we doing out here?
Listen, if you're at someone's house and they're making certain foods, you gotta do what you can.
Okay, so it's lubricant at that point. it's not tasty. It's like, oh man, this is kind of dry. I need some ranch.
Now every time you see me eating ranch, you're gonna give me the like.
Yeah.
Why are you putting the ranch on that?
Look, if I order sorry, forget the wrestling show for a second. If I order something and they put ranch on the plate, fine. But I'm not gonna be like, excuse me, do you have any ranch? That to me is crossing a culinary line. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't get. I used to when I was a kid. I'd get a lot of ranch. But
Yeah, a child.
That's as a child. You're right. I don't really do that anymore. But yeah, the point being, I think when you have a lot of talent, it's very easy to be like, let's put them in a group. Let's make this person a group. Let's make these guys a group. That'll, instead of having to come up with one character, we can come up with 4 characters. We can come up with one character and copy and paste it across all 4 of them.
Damn.
And so it's very easy. And if you only have 1 or 2 of them, it's okay. But when you've got more than 1 or 2 of them, it becomes very redundant. And now you kind of muddy the waters of a diverse talent group. So I look at it, I think if you have 1 or 2, it's great. I do think we're getting too many. The Coaling and this new group, for instance, I already have to figure out what's the difference between these groups.
Yeah. Shut it down. The one that looks like Retribution of the Shield has not have a name yet, but I'm with you. I will say this: Shawn Spears needs this. I think it's kind of cool that he has like a psychological things, but dude showing up and beating up people. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's kind of old. Between the Death Riders and like the Shield, like it's been done. So you got to give me something different to get on that board. But
I think what kills that new group, and sorry to cut you off too, is because you say the Shield and Retribution. In this case particularly, it's tough because visually they kind of look like they would be in those groups. So, when you wear the masks and when you kind of come out of the crowd out of nowhere and attack this way, it is kind of the same formula. And that's where it becomes extra dangerous is now I need to know who these guys are about. It's also tough when you have 2 different groups who are trying to say who they are at the same time. Also makes it tricky. So,
that problem at Fire Pro Wrestling. I'm just putting it out there. Shout out Danny Cochran.
By the way, A+LA says Jordan Grace gets bigger pops. So that's not really there's a lot of people who are going to get bigger pops in different places. Like that doesn't necessarily. Jordan Grace is an absolute superstar who's been on NXT for a while now.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because I do still think of her as a TNA talent, even though she is officially NXT. I have to amend my notes a lot of times when I have like these worlds collide such a thing. Ricky St. Clair, fins up, baby, says they could have used a new group, I guess with the rookies, as an Evolve type takeover. Evolve has its own NXT problems right now, but what do you say, Jack?
Yeah, I think they could have probably been more valuable on Evolve at this point, but at the same time, I also just think I just think there's too many stables. And I think that you can't have them debuting. And if you're going to have a stable debut, you can't have multiple stables trying to tell us who they are. Like, I need to know exactly who this group is and what they're about right away, if that's what you're debuting.
One of the bigger wrestling stories that got kind of like lost in the shuffle with Hall of Fame announcements and pay-per-views and PLEs was the fact that Roman Reigns made his appearance this week on Monday Night Raw. The road to WrestleMania gets complicated. Punk, Rollins were in the cage, and it looks like that technically Seth Rollins won this matchup. So now they are even, but Roman Reigns is destroying absolutely everybody. Poor Paul Heyman didn't know what to do. It was pandemonium, Jack.
The important thing here, Seth Rollins got the dub, baby. Still freaking to me. Seth Rollins beat CM Punk. Big win for the Revolutionary, baby.
Shout out to Dina Howard if you get that reference, 10 points. Okay, look, I know you're a Punk hater, man, but this was not the way Seth freaking Rollins wanted to win.
Yeah, so look, a win is a win is a win. That's all that matters. Go to the pay window.
Terrible.
I'm glad Seth Rollins got the win on this one. But yeah, Roman Reigns back on TV. And we talked a little bit about aura earlier. I don't know if anyone defines the word aura in pro wrestling more than Roman Reigns does. I mean, you have him in a matchup, in a moment with multiple people who are known to have an aura. And it felt like, dang, Roman Reigns is the guy with the aura as he's standing there. And the fact that people are cheering for Roman Reigns spearing CM Punk, very few people can get you to cheer CM Punk getting attacked. That
you would cheer anyway. You love to get speared, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm all about it, baby.
I am not a Moose hater. CM Punk, hell yeah. Spear that fool. Fine.
So, uh, like this was fantastic TV, and I think that Roman Reigns needed to show up here. I think he needed to be here because like I get that there's history between all these guys, and I know what happened at Royal Rumble, but time moves very quickly in the WWE. And already all that stuff with Roman Reigns started to seem like ancient history going into Raw this week. And so
Yeah.
I think he came back at just the right time because I know there's been rumblings about a three-way match and whatnot. But like I said, it was starting to feel very like, how does Roman Reigns even fit into this? Because these other guys, they're very heated against each other. Roman Reigns, again, the aura that man has is undeniable. And I'm glad he's back. And I'm glad he speared CM.
I'm with you because Roman could have been plugged in anywhere. He could have been plugged in that whole Cody Rhodes situation, and also plugged in still to the other side. Solo Sikoa, over going to SmackDown quite a bit, is going through a rough time, man. He actually lost a match against Roman Reigns, and he's not been the same. Jacob Fatu has taken all of his shine, all of his swag. This past week on SmackDown, couldn't even beat Braun Strowman 1-2-3 the way that Jacob Fatu did it. Look, I like Solo. I think he was a victim of just having a really bad story, but it looks like the crowd, it looks like the story, it looks like WrestleMania is turning away the former street champ of the island.
I'm so glad you mentioned the former street champ of the island because as I was watching Solo Sikoa this week, I was thinking to myself just how far he's come from being that, and the dominance he once had and the fear he used to put into people. I think he needs to find that again because even you
But
think
how,
about him
Jack?
on NXT, he was someone who his music hit and you were scared.
He retired Boa. He never came back.
He retired the legendary Boa out of pro wrestling completely.
Yeah.
But even on the main roster, even standing next to the guy with the aura, Roman Reigns, we just talked about, he was the killer. He was the guy that you didn't want to cross. Solo Sikoa, and then somewhere along the way, he lost that edge to him. I don't know if it's because he thought he was the head of the table and then therefore no longer needed to get his hands dirty and it changed him. I don't know if it's Jacob Fatu showing up and maybe making him think that he just doesn't have that edge anymore. But Solo Sikoa needs to get rid of the suit. He needs to get rid of the outfits. He needs to get rid of even talking and just start destroying people again and get back to that guy that took the voice box out of John Cena's throat once.
I don't. There is no worse time to lose momentum than now. Because after WrestleMania, it was basically Solo. Roman had left, Cody had left. Like Solo was SmackDown for like 7 months, and now it's the high season, and now you're just kind of in the background chilling. Everyone's looking like, "Hey, where's Jacob coming? Is Tama Tonga coming back? Where's Tangaloa?" And it's like, wait a minute, I put this on my back. Where is my receipt? Where's my retribution?
Yeah, I think he needs to do something.
He's the right tribal chief, A plus LA. Sorry, A plus LA says him cosplaying as the tribal chief set him up for failure. He is the tribal chief. He's my tribal chief. He had the Ula Fala. That proves he was the chief.
Well, and that's the problem, I think, Flobo. I agree. He was the tribal chief. When Roman Reigns left during the worst of times, when we needed a leader, Solo Sikoa was there. He was there to be the tribal chief. So I'm with you, Flobo. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But this is what I think Solo Sikoa needs to do. He needs to do something he has never done since he left NXT. He needs to be selfish. He needs to be himself again. What made Solo Sikoa great? He was the guy that everyone else on the island left behind. He was the guy that had to stand on his own. And I think he needs to say, I'm done worrying about being the tribal chief. I'm done worrying about the Usos, done worrying about the Tamas and the Tongas and the Fatus, done worrying about all of them. I'm only thinking about myself. I'm only thinking about Solo. I think that's what Solo needs to do to get back on track.
I actually agree with you 100%. One of the things that was dropped from his character was those NXT promos when he was like, no, I was left behind, presumably by the Usos. I had to fend for myself, and that's why I wanted to see when he got to the main roster. And when he became the suit, I was like, well, I guess that's fine, but you're right. That's how you get the fire back. But speaking about individuals who are going through a rough time, well, I don't want to dampen this. LA Knight is now your new United States champion, yeah, for the second time, this time beating Shinsuke Nakamura. But it's how he beat Shinsuke Nakamura is why I want to bring it to you. This new Red Sun, can I even say samurai, respectfully, presentation of Nakamura had all the inklings of being someone to be a long-term champion and to be a mainstay on the roster. But like a lot of times, a lot of iterations of Shinsuke Nakamura, it's kind of done now. BFT, Blood Force Trauma, yeah, as Shinsuke Nakamura is lying like he's dead in the middle of the ring. Look, Jack, I always say this on our group chat. Maybe Nakamura was bought high from Triple H, but this could be the end of Nakamura being a threat on the roster.
So, as you get older, you'll start to listen to music that's older. And new music comes out and you'll appreciate it, but you'll go to concerts and you'll see the people that you used to love to listen to that used to play on the radio back in the day as you're driving around. And you see these artists that you used to love, and they'll be the people who made the soundtracks of your childhood. Now, for you, you think that they stopped making music, but they kept making music. They kept making music long after you stopped listening to them.
No.
And when you go to these concerts, they'll play these new songs, and you're like, what in the hell is this? Just play the hits, baby. Just play the songs we know. Play the songs that got you to the dance. Play the stuff we love. Shinsuke Nakamura, for so long, was playing hits that we loved. And then somewhere along the line, I don't know when, maybe it was after he started kicking AJ Styles in the nuts. I don't know. Maybe it was after he lost his guitar player. I don't know. He stopped playing the hits. He kept trying to reinvent himself and change what he did. I don't want to hear your new sound. I want to hear the hits, Shinsuke. I don't want to hear your experimental reggae album. I want to hear you play the stuff that made you famous.
Wait. That's a mental image. Isn't this Nakamura coming out to reggae? Just okay, go ahead.
You could play his theme on a steel drum. You know it. You can hear it in your head right now.
That's great. Shout out to my ancestors.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, when I go to see a concert, I went and got to see Green Day recently. I don't want to hear Green Day's new stuff. I don't care. I don't care about your new stuff. I don't care about the stuff you've been playing for the last 20 years. I want to hear the stuff that I listened to when I was a kid and growing up. That's all I care about, Flobo. And that's what Shinsuke needs to do. Go back. Just play the hits. Play the greatest hits, Shinsuke.
Just a grown man cheering for Dookie. Now, here's something that's really interesting about Shinsuke Nakamura. If he goes back to maybe having the solo violinist and doing the exaggerated entrances, will that earn some goodwill to get people back on board? Or is it at the point now, to use your analogy, when, say, Will Smith decides to do Summertime but calls it Block Party and calls it Cruising and tries to reinvent and capture lightning in the bottle again?
Well, that's kind of the point. He shouldn't be doing Block Party. He should still be doing Summertime. And that's all I want to hear.
Right.
Will Smith, play Summertime. Getting jiggy with it's okay, too.
It's a classic, sir. It's a classic.
You can say, look, I'll even settle for Miami, okay? Men in Black, Men in Black is okay. What's it?
Men in Black, Millennium, Wild Wild West. I mean,
Wild Wild West. That's the one I don't really like because it reminds me of the terrible movie and it just puts me in a bad mood.
You don't like giant mechanical spiders?
Who does?
I mean, I was a fan.
But the point is, whatever he does, he's got to get wins. If he's not getting wins, it doesn't really matter what he's doing. So he's got to find a way to get wins. I don't know where those wins come from. I don't know if that's back in NXT. I don't know if that's on Raw. I don't know if that's SmackDown, whatever. But he's got to start getting wins. But just go back to what made you great in the first place, Shinsuke. Quit trying to reinvent and evolve and all that good stuff. Just be the guy we love.
Yeah, it's pretty telling that we like LA Knight, but the point that he won the way he did, it was kind of like, man, that he didn't even put up a fight. Poor Shinsuke. Some samurai Shinsuke didn't even bother putting his hand up. But anyway, moving over to Dynamite as we wind this down here this week, we had ourselves a bit of fallout from Revolution, but to your point, we saw a bit of those building blocks for the next chapter of AEW. Swerve is on the rise. Christian Cage is still in the mix. And we got some debuts. Now, a lot to go in through, but I want to ask you this question. First things first. Is it safe to say that AEW this week was way better than it was a year ago this time? Or is it kind of just like a slow tectonic plate situation?
I think it's way better than it was a year ago. A year ago, they were struggling. A year ago was not a good time for AEW fans. I don't think this was a perfect episode. There was a lot of stuff I really did love, though. I love that they're building to All In. I know Dynasty is next, but I love that they're talking about the importance of main eventing All In, as Will Ospreay did. I love that they're talking about the World Championship and Swerve potentially being the next champion. I really hope that Swerve does win the championship. I think that that's the next thing AEW needs. And that's a lot of people are upset about the outcome of Revolution and Mox retaining the championship. I'm okay with it because I would rather Swerve beat Mox right now than Cope beat Mox right now. And again, as a defender of Cope, I just don't think he's the guy right now. I don't think he's who you want in that spot.
You don't think he's? I feel like Stone Cold Steve Austin. You don't got what it takes anymore. I'm just, come on. Are you kidding me? Why are we entertaining Cope in 2025 your main event? Jericho knows 805 is a good spot for him, but every month I gotta be like, oh, can Cope win this one? You got me upset, Jack. I'm so mad. Why are you doing this?
I think there's a place for Cope. I just don't think him as the champion right now is that time.
Fans deserve better. Look, it's not, I love Nostalgia Acts as much as the next guy, but if you want your promotion to get back on track, this guy needs to go down the card.
Well, I think right now that's what he needs to do also. I agree with you on that. I'm just saying, and look, the truth is, if I was to map out a fantasy booking of how this works out, I don't know if Cope would ever be the guy. But if you said to me in the future, Jack, Cope is the world champion now, and it's great, I wouldn't be that shocked either. I think it's possible. But right now, I do agree with you. I think you got to focus on Swerve. You got to focus on Ospreay. You got to focus on Hangman. You got to focus on Kyle Fletcher, even who I think is on the cusp of being there. Yeah. I think you've got people who are already ready. I think Ricochet actually has been incredible. Kenny Omega, I don't know how much longer you have him, so he should be in that conversation as well. MJF, obviously. The Hurt Syndicate, I think, could have someone in there. I think a Bobby Lashley could be in that conversation. So I think it's too crowded for who you should be focusing on right there. But the idea of Cope isn't bad. I just don't think that there's a spot for him on the top of the card right now.
I'm just mad because he blocked me on Twitter or X. I'm just, for those listening, I wasn't always a hater. I kind of was, but I was blocked. So therefore I totally am justified. But
I got blocked too. So it doesn't matter. He blocks everybody.
What the heck? Okay, so talk about the Owen real quick. Now, yeah. I know on previous episodes of Draped and Gold that we covered AEW, we complained, or I complained, about way too many tournaments, right? There's eliminated tournaments, there's a Continental Classic, there's the Owen. But this one, I would say if you had to keep one, I would, right? Even though Owen Hart was never an AEW superstar, I know that's kind of the thing people talk about. This one here has the making to be the most prestigious tournament in AEW, but this year seems like it's shaping up to be the biggest of all time.
I'd agree. And I think that they're positioning it well in that I think that the way that Ospreay alluded to it, I think is very smart, saying, I want to win the Owen so I can get the main event of All In for the AEW championship. I think that AEW needs its Royal Rumble right now. Now, I'm not saying they need a 30-person battle royal, but what they need is that thing that people fight for so that they can get the opportunity to main event the biggest show of the year. And they need to start treating that like the biggest show of the year and building towards that. And in that promo, it felt like they actually had that moment where he was saying, listen, my goal is to win this tournament so I can get the main event, so I become the world champion. And forget the championship belts you get with the Owen. I think they really just need to say, listen, the Owen is about main eventing All In. The Owen is about getting that world title shot. And now make that Owen feel like something special. And honestly, I'd make the Owen a one-night tournament. I love one-night tournaments. Make it on Dynasty.
But that was kind of the big mysteries we have with AEW. It was like, what was your big show? Is it Double or Nothing? Is it All Out? Is it All In? Is it Full Gear? And everyone had their answers because it felt like they tried to make every pay-per-view equally as important. But yes, for that to work, you have to say one is objectively bigger than the other. And you're saying it's All In.
Well, they've been saying that for the past 2 years now, ever since they started doing Wembley. They were saying All In, and they've been advertising All In Texas for about 6 months now. So that one clearly is their biggest show of the year. And so, yeah, I think and that's a smart thing. You need to have a biggest show of the year. You need to just to help foundationally create stories that people build to, because you need to have that payoff. You need to have that climax moment at the biggest show of the year. And if everything's the biggest show of the year, then there's no rise and fall of action and tension and basic storytelling.
Speaking of basic storytelling, the Hurt Syndicate, I'm not saying I would be bored of Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley because they're probably beating my ass, but they look like they were kind of going to be on autopilot. But this week, a wrinkle appeared.
Yeah, they're going to go hit the Muscle Beach and get a workout in.
No. We're talking about the tag team division here in AEW. It may be a bit of a comeback here, right? You think about how dominant the Hurt Syndicate is, and maybe looking like that same issue of having another member if needed could be on the table as well.
Yeah, they look like they're going to dominate this tag team division. I don't know who's going to be able to beat them or who's they're going to get in the ring with. It definitely reminds me of old school Brock Lesnar when he first showed up and he was taking chair shots to the face from the Hardy Boys and still beating the brakes off both of them. And I remember just thinking, who could beat this guy? He's too fast. He's too strong. I feel like that's the Hurt Syndicate right now. Now, they had a conversation with MJF, and this is why I don't think MJF lost too much steam, because he... Like, this
I
is
hate
where
I was like, here's a wrinkle. He's like, the beach. I'm like, damn it, Jack.
But it's an interesting approach to this. I'm going to give it the let it breathe answer. But right now I'm a little... I don't know if I see MJF mixing well with being a part of the Hurt Syndicate. He doesn't feel like he would hang out with them. I don't believe...
Choose the next words careful. Why wouldn't they? They like working out. They like tans. Jack?
Because they're very loose and he's very stiff.
I think the Hurt Syndicate's pretty loose. I mean, they look like they work out all the time. They eat right all the time. They're not really going out to the clubs anymore.
Yeah, but they look like they smile about it. And like, you see the way that Shelton Benjamin was, hey, we're still going to go work out though. Okay, haha, yeah, go have a good time. Where MJF is a little bit too, like, he'll scream at you and break mirrors and stuff. Like if they were in the same locker room, Flobo, and MJF broke that mirror like he did on Dynamite, they'd be like, bro, cool down. What are you doing?
Yes. I can imagine Shelton be like, bro, cool down.
Bro, cool.
Fair enough.
MJF's wound a little bit too tight, I think, to hang out with this group. And that said, I mean, could we see Hurt Syndicate versus MJF? I don't know, but I feel like I'd be rooting for the Hurt Syndicate to gang up and beat up on a guy. That's a weird situation to be in. So I'm very curious how this plays out.
Yeah, anyone that says they're better than me deserves to get their ass kicked, but that's just me putting it out there. But before we wrap this up, just your quick thoughts on WWE Evolve this week. Second week in the mix. Looks like a lot more NXT influence. Stevie Turner is the AGM officially, I guess. Gallus is around. What's going on with Mensa? It just feels like NXT 2.0.
One more character beat of MJF and Hurt Syndicate real quick, I got to say, is a key difference, if you notice. Hurt Syndicate is all about making money, where MJF seems to be all about spending money. Two very different motivations there. But let's talk about WWE Evolve. This was an interesting episode. I was very intrigued the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
This episode, I had mixed feelings because there was a lot of characters and a lot of wrestlers who I am a big fan of that I got to see take a spotlight. Oro Mensa, I've always been a very big fan of. Gallus, I've always been a very big fan of. Luca Crucifino and Big Body Javi getting time. Love it. This was great. But going into Evolve, I thought this was going to be the chance for me to see people I haven't seen before. And I thought that this was going to be the chance for me to see people who were on the indies get the national spotlight and opportunity. But as I'm watching it, I was seeing people I have already seen before. And seen on NXT, and it like I said, it was mixed feelings because I was glad to see these people, but on the same time, I was like, this feels like NXT light. This doesn't feel
Level
like
up. Yeah.
Evolution. Exactly. It felt like level up, which maybe that's the plan, but I would have liked to see it embrace more of the new characters and the new wrestlers that are still grinding it out on the indies, like Zara Zacher, more of her.
Yeah, I'm with you on the more of the fresh talent. To me, I think Gallus would be like if wrestling was real, Gallus would be at the pub when Evolve is recording. They wouldn't they wouldn't be backstage doing anything. And I do like the idea that Stevie Turner is now the assistant GM more or less because she's making matches. But yeah, I kind of wish there was a lot more of the profiles of people like why is Gal doing there? Like what I want to know what's his deal, but that's just probably me.
Yes, Stevie Turner, very much the Sid Scalia of Evolve, where she's like the assistant to the general manager, which makes Ava Johnny Saint.
Nobody remembers Johnny Saint Sid Scalia. That is only us. Fever dream that is NXT UK in the Thunderdome. We're the only ones that have any recollection of that brand.
But I do like seeing Stevie Turner on. She's a delight. They should have her on TV more.
Yeah, man. Before you says get out of here, my friend, anything from this week of wrestling you want to let me know?
Yeah, I'm going to be ring announcing for Epic Pro Wrestling on Saturday. So if you're in Southern California, get your tickets and come check out the show. A lot of cool matches are going to be on there, and I'm going to be screaming the names of everybody before they come out.
Wow. And if I want to book you for an event, how would I ever go about doing that?
Best way to do it is follow me at Real Jack Farmer across social media. And you can DM me, email me, whatever works best, but also see everything I'm working on there.
Yeah. Well, not if you're Cope, because he's blocked us both, but that's just me. Just putting it out there.
A Plus LA wants to know thoughts on Noami and Jade. What are your thoughts, Flobo?
I was right because you kept telling me it was Bianca, and I was absolutely right because it totally didn't make sense why Bianca would attack Jade. It was Naomi. That's a character that really needed something different, not necessarily a heel turn. But you know what? If John Cena could turn heel, why not Naomi? So I'm on board with this. It puts Bianca in an interesting position because she's going to WrestleMania, but she has this friend conflict. It almost tells us that she may not win the championship, but it gives us a match with fresh talent. I love it. Everything makes sense to me top to bottom.
See, I think we both say the same thing because I was right. I believe Bianca had everything to do with this. What did Naomi say? She said, I did it for you, Bianca. Bianca never said, I didn't want you to do this. I mean, she cried and she was unhappy, but even if she did, she was acting. I mean, that's what she's if Naomi's taking the bullet for her, you don't say, no, I also wanted to attack Jade. That defeats the whole purpose. Did Naomi do the actual attack? Probably, but who called the shot? Who called in the hit, Flobo?
Oh my
It was
gosh.
Bianca.
If
Bianca Belair did it. Did you look at the way Jade looked at Bianca Belair? How come Jade isn't talking to Bianca and being like, hey, I know we're cool. I got to handle this with Naomi. She's not, is she?
No.
She's not. She's not alleviating Bianca of anything. Bianca Belair, she's just the mastermind-ist.
I hate that because if Bianca and Naomi both turn heel, we'll have another New Day situation where you just became jerks at once. For what reason? Like, come on.
Well, in this case, it's to hold on to being the EST that Bianca Belair is so terrified of losing.
Yeah, you got to give me a reason why you don't like Jade then, because Jade came out.
Sorry to interrupt, but if Bianca is so angel-like, so perfect, so unable to do wrong, why was she pie facing Io Sky on Raw when Io Sky was there to be the actual number one contender or the actual champion, the actual matchup? Io Sky is right there, but Bianca's pie facing her. Why? Because Bianca is selfish and she doesn't think about others, and she called the hit. Selfish-ist.
She has we're out of time. She has the ticket to face an opponent. She's earned that. That is a right. That is not being selfish at all. You earn that. You have it. Why not go after the opponent you're going at WrestleMania?
She didn't. She was going after Rhea Ripley, but she pie-faced the champion disrespectfully, mind you. It was that microcosm that showed us a real look into who Bianca Belair really is. It's like when you go out and the person snaps at the waiter. That's what happened there. She snapped at the waiter, and now we know what Bianca Belair is really all about, and it's attacking Jade Cargill.
I'm going to go and look up Microcosm. But until that time, it's ready to go learn more about the show on your favorite podcasting platform. I'm getting out of here. Find me at justasandwich.com. But until next week, my friend, please say the words.
Do your best and be yourself.
Bianca's innocent.